We help people find franchises. It's just that simple. I've done this for over 20 years. Ray, how long has it been for you?
I'm going on 30, Terry. Going on
Going
30.
on 30. That can't be possible. You could not have started doing this when you were 9 years old. It's just not possible. And so we're part of a national organization in its 24th year. We have a portfolio of franchise companies. We have a learning community for you called hireyourbestboss.com. So if you have not visited that, what are they going to find when they get to hireyourbestboss.com, Ray?
You are going to find resources. The idea,
Videos.
videos, paper. There's a lot of information there. The idea is to help you so that as you go through the process, you can learn how to identify, so you can learn how to evaluate all the different options that are out there. Business options, franchise options. Heck, I'm working with people who are looking at franchises and jobs, Terry, and they're comparing and contrasting those two. That's great. The learning
I think
community
most
is
of
there
the
to
people
help
I
you.
work with compare a corporate income against what they can make with a franchise opportunity. So that's a great first question, Ray. Can you replace a corporate income with a franchise opportunity?
Well, do we want the long or short answer, Terry?
Let's go with the short answer.
Got it. The answer is actually the same. It's yes, you can. But there's, like everything, there's a couple things. You gotta find the right one. You got to be the right person. You got to put in work, because business ownership, even if it's executive, often looks like it's dressed in overalls and smells a lot like work. There is work involved,
There is.
whether you're doing full time or you're using a little bit less than full time and keeping a job. So it's gonna be some work. It doesn't mean it's not great, and it doesn't mean you can't not only replace but do exceptionally well. Many people coming to us, Terry, I'm sorry to cut you off, are looking to build their own mini empires. They're looking to build their own generational wealth, but it doesn't happen overnight. It takes a little bit of work, and hopefully we can help you find that and use a little bit of our skill to help you get there.
Absolutely, through what we call the informed decision process. So if you've never investigated a franchise before, there are some nuances and there are some landmines to investigating a franchise. And when you visit hireyourbestboss.com, you'll see that we have a roadmap series there, which will show you how to go through. If you work with us one-on-one, we're going to match you to great franchises after we create a written strategy for you. And then we're going to teach you the informed decision process so you can answer that question for yourself. Can I replace an income of any type? Okay, low corporate income, high corporate income. If you're in that C-suite, can I really, replace? The answer is yes, and we'll show you exactly how to do that step by step by step. And today, Ray, this is probably one of our most fun episodes because we've learned over the last few years that it's one of our most watched episodes. We're going to talk disruption. I know it's one of your favorite subjects.
It's one of those overused words, right? Disruption. But in this case, people are sending us emails saying, "Hey, what happened in Memphis? What's new? What's great? What's changing the industries?" Everybody wants to know what's new and what's great. Sometimes what's new and what's great has also been around for a while too.
So Ray and I went to Memphis for an entire week. We landed on Monday morning. We worked the entire week. We left on Saturday, and joining us was our franchise home office staff. Shout out to them. They are fabulous. Also joining us were franchisors in our portfolio. And so we had about 300 people that just overran the Peabody Hotel. And if you've never been to Memphis, you decide to go visit the Elvis Museum. It was a fun night. And go to the Peabody Hotel and see the ducks. Okay. They are world famous. At 11 in the morning and 5 in the afternoon, there are duck ceremonies. One of our consultants was anointed a duck master. It was a lot of fun. But the most fun for us is we were dunked in a shark tank for 5 days. Tell everybody what that's like, Ray.
It's a little overwhelming, and it's also quite empowering. You get to see both emerging and very tried and true concepts. And from our perspective, we're with our colleagues and our partners, and we're looking at businesses so that we can hopefully do the best job of helping our folks find the right options. So we're learning. I mean, it's a lot. You're kind of drinking out of the fire hose, to use that expression, but a lot of information is coming, and you're looking to see what's out there, what can really be potential answers for our folks.
Absolutely. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We're next to franchise companies. We're in sessions with them. They're giving us as much education as we can handle. So we're looking at their culture. We're looking at the value proposition that they bring to their industry category. We're looking at their management. We're looking at all aspects of that business. And we love it, love it, love it when founders come. And I talk to many, many founders in Memphis. And so that's probably one of the first calls you're going to have with a franchise company is when you meet their development executives. They're going to talk about how the company was started. They're going to talk about their founder. They're going to talk about how this business grew to the point that it could become a franchise. And we saw something unique in Memphis, Ray. Private equity is starting to come to our conferences. Now, it's not a new phenomena in the franchise industry. Private equity has turned its sights on the franchise industry, but we saw multiple private equity groups commit staff and resources to us for the week.
Yeah, I was very impressed by that. As you and I were talking earlier, one of my big takeaways from this conference has been the commitment of the private equity. And shout out to the Princeton Equity Group, because they made quite a showing in this last one. And
they really did.
Commitment. I tell you what's really interesting to me is the commitment that some of these private equity companies, not just to show up at a Shark Tank, but to the commitment they are making to their brands. I mean, I guess it's not surprising in the one sense. The franchise industry is huge. Private equity was circling it for years and years ago, but I've definitely seen a change in the last 10 years. And I'm seeing another groundswell where they're kind of the buy, build, and the hold, right? A little bit different than maybe the kind of go in, try to blow it up and sell out. So I thought that was really interesting, and rubbing some shoulders with them and getting some of their insights, I thought was fascinating.
Absolutely fascinating. And that's your first step in evaluating a franchise company. Is the company worthy of your investment? Okay. We're going to talk more about your role as an owner. What will you do on a daily basis? What are you required to do to grow the business? But the first thing that you look at is the company, and the capitalization behind that individual franchise company is really a significant part of the investigation. Plus, private equity brings a lot of mental resources, a lot of industry talent to the table that individual franchise companies can tap into. So the amount of human talent and human resource that's available through private equity networks really takes a lot of companies' games up. Wouldn't you agree, Ray?
I totally agree. I'll tell you one other thing. I talk to people all the time about the buckets, right? The owner operator bucket, the executive bucket, the investor bucket. What was interesting is talking to the PE groups and their senior management is how interested they were in each of the buckets. It wasn't, I'm interested in just one bucket of, it's the breadth, it's the whole of the industry. They're interested in all those buckets, and they're actually working hard to provide solutions for each of those buckets. So people who are currently looking at businesses, my guess is if you're looking at 2, 3, 4, you're going to run into some private equity. That's my guess. Most likely you're going to run into some private equity ownership that as you do your investigation. So just it's another layer to peel back and understand.
One of the things that I saw at our conference that certainly speaks to disruption is artificial intelligence. Can't tell you how many presentations, I was in where the franchise company talked about their use of artificial intelligence.
And it might not be the use that you expect. Like many
Correct.
people, I've had people coming to me when they're asking about food, for instance, and they will they'll be asking how to replace or get rid of all employees, right? That's kind of where they're coming from. What I heard a lot of the companies talking about was using AI as a tool to enable people to be more efficient and operationally efficient. So not necessarily always replacing, but more empowering. I thought that was an interesting kind of takeaway.
Absolutely interesting. One of the franchises that we saw has an artificial intelligence sales agent. So it's brick and mortar. So when you enter the business, you log in and the AI agent starts asking you questions about why you're there and then prescribes the specific services that you should use in that business. Really pretty cool. And it happens in about 3.5 to 4 minutes. So it's not a 30 to 40-minute chat with somebody at the front counter. It's very efficient. I think that's the underlining word for what we saw uses of artificial intelligence: efficiency, efficiency, efficiency. Another franchisor uses an iPad and records the customer conversations that they have with their particular prospects through agreement, right? And then sends it to the AI database. And they now have hundreds of individual conversations with real live leads who are interested in their product. And they've optimized that and they use that to train their salespeople. If you're a franchise owner, would you like to know that your sales training, okay, is cutting edge? You don't have to put somebody in the car and run them over here and say, okay, now this is how we shake it. Now, you need to hire people that know how to shake hands, right? But you have them log on to the artificial intelligence library for this particular franchisor, and that just enhances and escalates your sales training. Boom, boom, boom. That was pretty impressive. And we saw a lot of those examples.
A lot of that, a lot of that. Now, a lot of the people who showed up here, and boy, we had over 125 people wanted to be a part of this. So that's great. I'm glad that we did. But
Thank you.
Thank you for showing up. But I'll tell you what I think they want to hear, though. What do they really want to hear? What are those?
They want to hear about companies.
Companies. They want to hear about industries. They want to hear,
Yeah.
what's out there. What should I be thinking about?
Categories and companies. One category, when we were at the airport Saturday morning getting ready to go home, you brought this up and it was just a salient point. The pet category continues to grow, right? 20 years, the pet category has grown in the United States marketplace. And not just the COVID effect. In COVID, a lot of people got pets because, they wanted some companionship. Now we're post-COVID. The pet industry continues to grow. And I talk to my candidates about that all the time, not only about their individual pets, but, about businesses that exist within that industry. Because my experience has been, when an economy turns down, there are three things that people don't cut back on: kids, pets, and parents.
And it's not necessarily in that order.
And it's not necessarily in that order, but, senior care, is another stable category. We all know the statistic: 10,000 people turn 65 every day in the United States, right? So you can't tell a parent, okay, that, you can't do something, right? You figure out a way to afford that. You don't stop feeding your pets. You don't stop caring for your pets. And most people don't cut back with their children on tutoring, on additional education, on child enrichment programs after school. When it gets a little tight, you find ways to trim in other areas. Has that been your experience, Ray?
Absolutely. One of the things you mentioned was the children's enrichment, and it's a lot of schools cut back, right? They cut back, and parents are spending money on their kids, and they invest into them, whether it's art or sport. Obviously, sports means something to me, so I've seen how that how that athletic side and, health and wellness, even for kids, is big. One other industry, it just occurred to me, is the home service industry, the specialty home service. I mean, they may be dirty businesses, maybe, but they're the kind of recession resistant, businesses that people seem to really go after. Houses are going to get flooded. There's going to be mold and mildew. I want a new bathroom, and people who can do that more efficiently and effectively, if they have the system, you're looking for companies sometimes that have the gray hair on young shoulders, Tara. The companies that know what they're doing, and maybe they see an industry and they're just like, maybe it's not incredibly sexy. It just works.
I was working with a candidate a few months ago. I told you this story, and we were doing his consultation. We were finding out, what he was passionate about, how he wanted to live, work, and play, as he transitioned out of corporate and looked at owning his own franchise. And I said, how do you feel about blue collar employees versus white collar employees? Have you ever thought about that? And he said, no one's ever asked me that question. He said, but I'm okay with both. He said, I think I would actually lean a little towards blue collar. And I said, why is that? And he said, well, the dirtier the business, the higher the barrier to entry. And I said, that's an excellent point. There are a lot of people that just don't want, a dirty business, and that's fine. But you're right. There are barriers to entry for every business that you look at. And so that's a great point. I went through our inventory. I was able to show him 8 dirty businesses. And it was just a really fun call. We had a blast because, as the business got dirtier, he got more excited about it. He got really turned on to pet waste management. He got really turned on to crime scene cleanup. Some things that people would never think about as a franchise, right? Everybody's exposure to franchising is food, right? That's the 800-pound gorilla in our marketplace.
Terry, we just lost half our people right there. No, I'm kidding. Some of those dirty businesses, here's something that a lot of my people have noticed as they investigate and see what's out there for them. One of the things that they notice is that some of these businesses are not as labor intensive as they think. A lot of times it's equipment intensive. And that's kind of an interesting aspect that you wouldn't realize. You might look at it and say, boy, that's going to be a lot of labor. And some of them are. Some of the dirty businesses are labor intensive. But there's a lot of those dirty businesses that are really equipment intensive, which is another barrier to entry. And the better equipment you have. I mean, we saw a new company coming in with the gray hair. They've been in the industries for a while, but they're now starting something. They think they have a better mousetrap. They're doing, variations of residential and commercial power washing. I mean, there you go, right? It's equipment intensive too.
Yeah, I was thinking as I was sitting there listening to their presentation, do I know of a national power washing company? Is there a brand out there that dominates the power washing space? And I couldn't think of one. I have not found one since I left Memphis and got back to my office. But that's the goal of this founder, of his executive team, which is impressive, of his operations team, which is impressive, is to become the national U.S. brand in power washing. Wow. Okay. Blue collar labor, but you don't need a lot of labor, right? They have best equipment in the industry. And they made the point that a lot of businesses are required to power wash. And I'm like, a requirement. Okay. I know that, kitchens are required to clean their grease out of their grills and out of their exhaust systems on a regular basis, so you don't have fires, right? But I hadn't thought of the fact that those parking lots for restaurants need to be power washed. And now my reticular activation system is turned on when I drive by our fast food restaurants in my area where I live. I see it every morning, right? They're power washing, right? They're cleaning up the spilled ketchup. They're cleaning up, the ice cream cone that your 4-year-old tossed out the window, right? Yeah. Those are requirements. And
requirements. And also think about all this takes us to another business in that kind of ugly field, but just what about all those businesses that are out there that are making the parking lot, not just cleaning it, but then striping it?
Striping it. Yeah, what a
I mean,
great B2B business to
B2B,
business.
it's also all the think about all the condos and apartment complexes and I
Property
mean,
management companies,
oh my
shopping
goodness.
centers, strip centers.
Again, equipment intensive, kind of an ugly business if you don't know what you're looking at. You think it's labor intensive. Again, maybe it's labor intensive if you're counting your equipment as part of the labor. So it's a barrier to entry. Another industry, Tara, I want to throw your way. I keep hearing, I keep seeing this groundswell in the health and wellness industries.
Oh my
And
goodness.
I mean, whether it's weight loss, and how they go about it for not just the get quick, drop it and go. Lots of people want to take a pill. I get it, but doing the whole thing, right? That kind of health and wellness, the health and wellness that are, I mean, how many cryotherapies, red light, saunas, all the different things that we have seen. I mean, we've got some great companies that are taking on with long histories that are now franchising and going out there. And I've got some smart franchisees that are on the forefront of that as well, because they see the model and they're some of their best ones. So it's kind of an interesting take as well. I thought that was and did you have a take on that health and wellness as well?
I did. I expanded my definition of that category to health and wellness and light medical because there are a number of businesses now in our portfolio that are really light medical. And I absolutely love categories that the government deemed essential businesses during the pandemic, right? Where you can look at the supply and demand factors, back 10 years, back 20 years, back 30 years, 40, 50. Can you look at what happens, when the economy goes up and the economy goes down? Because all economies rise and fall, right? You have to have a business that's going to do well in both of those times, good and bad. And essential services, like medical, falls into that. You can't pass on a medical procedure when you need one, right? And so many more people now are conscious of their health, all the way through their age brackets, right? From young and up into older.
Yeah.
And it's just such a beautiful category from a supply and demand perspective.
Yeah.
And yes, we have multiple businesses in there. Was there one that jumped out at you, Ray?
Yeah, there was more than one, but there was one. The Lindora jumps out at me. I've
Yes,
seen.
Lindora, absolutely.
I kind of see where that's going and what they're intending to do. They have a lot of history in California, and now they're starting to take it across the country. So that's a little bit of the gray hair, experience, and then franchising, as opposed to, you always get a little bit worried if it's a brand new company with a brand new person who's never been in franchising or adult education. That always makes me a little nervous. Like some people like the idea of I'm going to start a business and I'm going to franchise it from day one. It's not a red flag, but it's at least a yellow flag. You got to watch out. Whereas I really like the companies that have been around and have done it and are
Mhm.
in industries that they can show or they have experience. Maybe they were in a related industry and they've got a lot of experience and then they're extrapolating, taking it to the next level. I can connect those dots and that makes me a little more comfortable. So yeah, I saw that, but I keep hearing people want cryotherapy. Like that comes up because I hear it almost every day. Or I want the next sauna. I want the next cold plunge. People want to not only live longer, they want to live better.
Rejuvenation therapy, right? When you say
Rejuvenation.
red light or light therapy, there are over 3,000 studies on light therapy, right? And so these are regenerative services, that we see. Cryo is regenerative. I've got an oddball for you, Ray, that
Go
just
ahead.
crossed my mind from a business that we saw. How would you like to be able to regenerate your roof? Okay, now we're
Oh,
out of the light medical category and we're in the home services. Have you ever had to replace your roof?
Terry, I have, but first of all, that is a great transition. That is a terrific transition. I don't know how you did that. Yes, in my years of home ownership, I've had to replace the roof, and it's funny when you say it because I'm always like, I don't want to replace the roof every 5, 10 years, right? Like, give me the 40-year shingles, which last 20 years, whatever. But give me I want it to. If I want a roof, I want it to work, and I want it to work well and as long as possible. So
We
I
have
know the
some,
company you're going to talk about. It was very interesting.
yeah, we have some very good roofing franchise companies, right, that do the standard replacement when those shingles have all blown away due to the hailstorm, right? And the roof's leaking, you've got no choice, right? We have that business, but everyone always asks about the labor component of
Absolutely.
that business. And so we saw a company who was the IFA, International Franchise Association, new business of the year several years ago, that has developed a product that can be sprayed on an asphalt shingle roof that will extend the life of that roof 15 years.
That's going to be huge. That's going to be. Can you imagine that in Florida?
Oh my goodness, can you imagine it anywhere? And
Yeah.
this company started in Canada. So this is not just a warm weather product.
No.
This
No.
is every climate product, and you need two employees to do this. You need a two-person crew and the right equipment, which is really the key to this business. But
Equipment intensive. The flubber, if you will. The stuff is what's that chemical compound is. I believe they have it patent. Is it patent pending? I believe
it
that's
is
what.
absolutely patent pending.
Right.
And not to get too deep on this, but it actually reapplies the granules,
Right.
okay, that the asphalt shingles are made up of. And so, what if your value proposition in the marketplace was don't replace your roof, regenerate your roof, right?
Yeah.
We'll come out tomorrow, right? We'll take about an hour, we'll spray your roof, and then we'll hand you a 15-year guarantee.
So
Okay,
less people that you need, right?
less labor.
You have less labor, and one of the things I hear when people are looking at roofs are it's a hyper competitive industry, right? Like I hear that all the time.
Absolutely.
Where am I going to find the people? And it's going to be hyper competitive. So this business is like, yeah, that doesn't apply to us.
No, that doesn't apply to us.
Yeah.
We have the right equipment. There's the barrier to entry. Okay. Because of the formulation, you need the right equipment. And so think about that as a category, home renovation.
I like their management team as well. It's a nice little management team. So
Excellent management team. Yeah.
I think
Good.
that's an interesting up and comer.
Yep. Absolutely.
All right,
Hey,
here's an up and comer. I got to make a transition here because we're getting short on time, and people didn't come and ask us to tell them just about their roofs. Tell me about an industry you and I hardly ever talk about. You know where I'm going.
yeah. Food.
Food. Tell me about food and beverage. Why should we even consider that? Because you and I don't do it a lot because there's a lot of pitfalls.
There's a lot of pitfalls. Food is a difficult first business. I can't think of a time this year, maybe you can, when someone called me and said, listen, I want a business. I wrote some things down. I want a business that has extreme competition. I want a business with really low profit margins. I want a business with high employee turnover. And I want to work in that business 19 hours a day, 6.5 days a week, right? Has anybody called you? That's generally what food is, but there are
Higher failure rate too. People say so.
generally, yeah,
Throw that
that's
one in too.
absolutely true. If you look at the SBA loan failure rates, food is one of those, right? But there are categories within food that do really, really well, and beverage is one of those categories.
Specialty, right?
Specialty beverages, right? I have a couple that I really like. Coffee is one of those, right? And sugar is the
Yeah.
other because they're both addictive.
And commodities too.
And they're commodities. And because with coffee, you need coffee and hot water, right? there's a high profit margin. Big profit margin businesses are better. They give you more room for error. They give you more flexibility. Ray, one of the keys to being in the food business is a single product offering type business. Rather than a menu board with 16 types of burgers and 17 side items and all your, what if you had a single product food offering like milkshakes? Do you like milkshakes, Ray?
Love milkshakes.
Love
Absolutely love
milkshakes.
milkshakes.
Yeah. What if your franchise was targeted on milkshakes and that's all you made?
You know, if you can have specialty, a limited menu that people really want, you don't have to have a lot of labor. Does that sound good? And it's milkshakes? Yeah. Now, Terry, though, sometimes I want vanilla, sometimes I want, Java mocha. So how does that work?
It works really well. There's one ice cream and different flavorings. And if you go through the investigation process, which we teach you how to do, and you find yourself at the franchise headquarters on a confirmation day, they will teach you how to make that milkshake in under 10 minutes. It's usually about 4 minutes from
Wow.
scratch, no experience. Now, imagine training your staff when you get back home. Your training class now lasts about 4 minutes, right? That's a food business unlike any other.
That is an unusual business, and
How,
that would be interesting.
how about a food business called Milkshake Factory that has revenue all 12 months of the year?
Yeah.
Their
Cool.
flagship market is in a northern winter market. It was the first question I asked them. I said, okay, what do your first quarter revenue numbers look like? January, February, March. Do you just close down and go to Florida? And they laughed and they said, no, we will send you the P&L, which they will send candidates so that you can look at impressive revenue in January, February, and March.
Same kind of, this is similar to what people used to say about coffee shops back in the day,
Yeah,
20, 30 years
absolutely.
ago. They're like, well, it might work in cold weather, but you're not going to make any sales in Florida in coffee or Texas in coffee, in Southern California in coffee during the summer. And it's just not true. It reminds me of that study, and I can't quote it because I don't remember where it was, but I believe, and this is for all my friends in Wisconsin, but the highest per capita consumption of ice cream was Wisconsin.
Wisconsin,
It's
exactly.
kind of cold.
Yeah, and I would have guessed cheese, okay? And I would have been absolutely wrong.
They're not necessarily mutually exclusive.
You know what the number one, coffee franchises are good. I love them. There are a lot of coffee shops in America. You know
Every
what the
corner.
number one beverage product is around the world?
I think I know.
It's tea.
Tea.
And we have a top 3 global brand in our portfolio that does bubble tea.
Global. So you're not just saying in the US, you're saying
Started
across
in
the world.
Taiwan, in 27 countries, 1,500 locations. Not a new franchise, publicly traded on the Taiwanese stock exchange, right? Not a new company at all, but new to the US, right? And you're watching tea as a business grow across the country. So if you want a simple food business, we've got a couple, okay, that are very addictive. Both of those products that we mentioned, milkshakes and bubble teas, are driven by sugar. And sugar has a big place in our economy.
But I heard the people with the bubble tea saying that you knew it was going to be big because their driver was the teenage girls, that they love that and they go there all the time. And which means if the teenage girls are there, it means the teenage boys are there. So, and they have disposable income. It might be their parents, but they're disposing of it, if you know what I mean. So that's interesting. I still think most of my folks tell me they're concerned about food for all the reasons that are really true. But the specialty foods, there's always people coming saying, "Hey, when's the next cupcake? When's the next this or that?" So if you want a specialty food type product, make it specialty if you're going to do food, is my advice, or at least consider that, and then do your homework and learn about these companies, because if that's the right model, if that's the right industry for you, there are some options. Whereas couple years ago, there just weren't.
There just weren't. And we have a very unique coffee business, right? What if you could have a coffee business that didn't require brick and mortar, a mobile coffee business? Ask us about that. And so, Ray, let's talk just a little bit about how we do what we do. When we meet somebody, do we say, hey, you should buy a milkshake factory, right? it's
Yeah.
it's really not where we start. And that's kind of what makes this live presentation so much fun for us, because we get to talk about individual businesses and categories that disrupt. And when we start with someone, it's really not where we start. We start with them.
Yeah,
Right?
we start with them because the idea behind what we're doing, it's the larger part of the learning community, right? What we start with them is to help them learn about themselves so that we can then take that, figure out your strategy, talking to you out there, your strategy, take your strategy, your skill sets, your aptitude, and your goals, put it into your strategy, use your strategy to sift through all those options out there and identify potential options that might be a great match for you. And if it were just science, we'd be done then. But we're not done then, are we, Terry? What do we do next?
What do we
they
do
next?
What they do next is help us understand how they want to live, work, and play. And over the last 24 years, our parent organization has scoured the franchise industry, right? Data says there are about 4,000 franchises, give or take, right now. I'm sure we've looked as a company at all thousands of those, right?
And not all good.
And they're not all good. There's an understatement. Okay. But we have a portfolio of companies that we have investigated, that we do understand. And there's a couple hundred in there. So do we ever send you a list of a couple hundred and say, hey, tell us what you like? No, it's not what we do. We keep refining what you're looking for, your goals, how you want to live life on your own terms. And then we match you to franchises that match your strategy. We have a beautiful process for that. And so it's step by step by step. So when we do talk to you about companies, they're companies that will fulfill your goals. They're companies that you have an interest in, that you want to look at and talk about. And you can see that process at hireyourbestboss.com. And you can book a one-on-one call with us, to get on the phone and talk to Ray or myself about that.
Absolutely. Terry, one of the things that you bring up, and I really want to make sure everyone understands, we're actually helping you to understand what your options are, but we're teaching you how to do it. We're teaching you how to fish. So we don't sell you. We don't work for the milkshake factory or any one of these other ones. We're going to teach you how to do it. It's why when I said earlier today, like, I have people who are looking at existing businesses that are not franchised as part of what they're looking at. I have people looking at jobs, and I can kind of tweak what we do and say, imagine this is kind of like the job is kind of like a business, and how that might work and fit. And if that's the right fit for you, high five. I want you to do that. Terry wants you to do that. Our colleagues, our partners at FranChoice, also, that's what we do. We get to help you go through this process and learn. And if you want to take the time to learn, we'll teach you how to do this so that no one can sell you, so you can learn and make the best decision for you and your family. And I'll get off the soapbox now, but that's really important.
And our service is free. There is no cost, there is no obligation, and there is no catch. You will never send Ray a dime. You will never get an invoice from me. It doesn't work that way. We're compensated like executive recruiters or commercial real estate brokers in the seller pays model. And if you want to jump on a one-on-one call with us and have us explain that, or anything else that we've talked about today, please feel free, book a call with us. We'd love to meet you, and we love talking to people about franchising. If you can't tell, we get excited about this.
And any questions, we went longer than I expected. Any questions, you can just send it to us. We'd love to answer your questions. I'll put it in the mailbag, so your question might be read online. And we are here to help you. We appreciate, again, you taking the time to show up, all those that were able to show up today. And we will talk to you soon.
Thank you so much. HireYourBestBoss.com. Thanks, Ray.
Thanks, Tara. Bye now.
Bye now.